The world knows me as a princess. They see the palaces, the elegant dresses, and the ever-present crowds. But behind the cameras, I often felt lost, like I was drifting. In that loneliness, I discovered a truth that became my compass. This is the story of how I learnt that a simple act of kindness, given without expecting anything in return, was the only thing that ever truly felt real. I remember my childhood as a time that was both beautiful and uncertain. After my parents' difficult divorce, there was always a sense of feeling unmoored, of searching for a safe harbour in a world that often felt, well, a little bit cold. I was shy. People thought it was endearing, but for me it felt isolating. Shyness became my shield. I learnt to watch, to listen, and to sense the emotional weather in any room. Growing up, I understood what it was like to feel unseen. Maybe that's when the first seeds were planted. Then, almost in a blink, my quiet routine as a kindergarten assistant was gone. Suddenly I was swept into the heart of an institution that thrived on rules, not feelings. They called it the firm. It was a world of strict protocol, tradition, and keeping a stiff upper lip. And then there was me, a 19-year-old girl, trying to find her way through a maze with no map. The pressure was immense, almost crushing at times. There were flashes of 1,000 cameras, the weight of a title, and expectations to be a fairy tale princess. From the outside it looked like a dream, but on the inside it felt deeply lonely. The rules were complex, unwritten, and I often felt as though I was failing a test no one ever taught me. My shyness was mistaken for aloofness, my honesty seen as breaking protocol. It was a very confusing time. I remember feeling that my personal struggles, the anxiety and sadness I faced alone, made me feel like an outsider. It was in this gilded cage, a world often lacking in simple human warmth, that I began to see what was truly missing. It wasn't about more grandeur, it was about connection, about empathy, about kindness. The kind of kindness that doesn't care who you are, but simply recognizes a person in need of a gentle word. I understood then, if I was going to survive and find my place, I couldn't just follow the rule book. I had to follow my heart. My public life became a strange paradox. The more famous I got, the more isolated I felt. Yet that fame also handed me a key. It opened doors to worlds I never even knew existed, worlds far removed from the polished corridors of palaces. And in those quiet, often forgotten corners of society, I found my purpose. It wasn't through some grand strategy. It was purely instinct. I've always said I lead from the heart, not from the head. My head was full of confusing rules, but my heart just saw people. It felt their pain as if it echoed my own. I was drawn to those who were suffering, because I too had suffered. So I began running toward the things everyone else seemed to be running away from. I remember my first visits to hospitals where patients were battling AIDS. This was the 1980s, a time filled with fear and misunderstanding. The disease was a terrifying mystery, and those living with it were treated like outcasts. Stigma was everywhere. People were afraid to even touch someone with HIV. Amid all that fear were human beings, sons, brothers, partners, who weren't just fighting for their lives, but also facing terrible loneliness. I walked into a ward in London. The air was thick with antiseptic and fear. The men there were so young. Their bodies were frail, but their eyes were full of life and a longing for connection. The world had turned its back on them. So I did the only thing that felt right. I reached out. I shook a man's hand. No gloves. It was such a small gesture, but the effect was like a thunderclap. You could feel the shock in the room. And then, relief. In that single moment, a wall of fear crumbled. A simple human touch said what words never could. You are not dangerous. You are not an outcast. You are a person, and you matter. It wasn't an act of defiance, not really. It was an act of humanity. I believed then, and I believe now, that the greatest disease in this world is people feeling unloved. I realized I could give love, maybe just for a minute or for a day, but I could give it, and I was glad to do so. This became a pattern. I started traveling to visit people living with leprosy, another condition cloaked in stigma. I would sit by their beds, hold their hands, and touch their wounds to show simply that they deserved compassion, not condemnation. Each time I did this, something inside me healed a little too. By offering comfort, I found comfort myself. With every person I met, that lesson became even clearer. When I started taking my sons, William and Harry, to visit homeless shelters, I wasn't just showing them a different side of life. I wanted to teach them and remind myself that any of us could find ourselves in need, just a few misfortunes away. I hoped they would understand how people feel, their insecurities, their distress, and their hopes, because true connection comes from recognizing that, at our core, we're all just people, trying to find our way. That same feeling drove me to join the campaign to ban landmines. Before I visited Angola in 1997, I'd read the shocking statistics. But no statistic can truly prepare you for the reality of meeting children whose lives have been shattered in an instant by a hidden weapon. It was heartbreaking. People advised me not to go. They said it was too political, too dangerous. But how could helping children who were losing their legs be about politics? For me, it was about humanity. So, I walked through a partially cleared minefield. The photographs were seen around the world, and that was the point. The world needed to see. I wasn't a politician. I was a mother, and above all, a human being. My heart told me this could not be ignored. Through all of this, a new philosophy began to take shape in my mind. This all began from my own loneliness and from the suffering I had seen in others. The answer was actually simple. The only real cure for pain and isolation is love. But not just an abstract feeling, I'm talking about practical, everyday, active love. There's a phrase often credited to me that sums it up. Carry out a random act of kindness, with no expectation of reward, safe in the knowledge that one day someone might do the same for you. Whether or not those were my exact words, that idea captures what I came to believe. For me, this was the answer I had been searching for. It was the answer to cold routines, harsh judgments, and my own sense of being lost. The word random is key. Kindness shouldn't only be given to those we know, or to those we decide are deserving. Instead, it should be instinctive, freely given to anyone who crosses our path. And perhaps the most important part, there's no expectation of a reward. True kindness isn't a transaction, it's a gift. You don't do it for praise or recognition. The real reward is within you. It's knowing you've helped lighten someone's load, even just a little. And that, all by itself, is enough. The final part, safe in the knowledge that one day someone might do the same for you, isn't about getting something back. It's an act of faith in humanity. It's the belief that by adding goodness to the world, you help create a cycle of compassion. You toss a small stone of kindness into a lake, and its ripples travel farther than you could ever imagine. Looking back, that simple idea became the core of my work. Nothing made me happier than helping the most vulnerable people in our society. It was in those moments, holding a hand, offering a hug, or just listening, that I felt most myself. The titles and tiaras would slip away, and what remained was simply one person connecting with another. This is why I did what I did. It was never about the cameras, though. I learned to use them to spotlight causes that were often overlooked. It wasn't about defying an institution, even if my way was unique. It was because I uncovered a simple truth. Everyone needs to feel valued, and everyone has the power to give something back. My greatest hope then and now is for my sons. I wanted to give them a life that looked beyond the palace walls. I wanted them to see the struggles of everyday people, to understand that real strength isn't about power, it's about compassion. Watching them continue this work, each in their own way, is the greatest fulfillment I could ever imagine. They truly understand that leading from the heart is what matters most. This philosophy of kindness wasn't something I was born with, it was shaped by the challenges in my own life. When my world felt chaotic, focusing on others brought me a sense of peace and purpose. It helped me turn pain into something constructive. By caring for others, I was also taking care of myself, and this is what I want to share with you. That idea isn't just a collection of words, it's a way of life, a quiet rebellion in a world that often feels cynical and divided. You don't need a special title to make a difference. All you need is an open heart. Change doesn't come from grand gestures, but from the small, unremembered acts of love we show every day. A kind word to a stressed shop assistant, a patient ear for a friend, a simple smile for a stranger. These moments won't make headlines, but they're what truly hold our world together. So I ask you, what random act of kindness can you do today? Don't overthink it, just open your heart and look around. See the person, not the label, then act. Do it without expecting anything in return. Do it quietly, and believe that even the smallest act of kindness can send a ripple of goodness out into the world. You may never know who it touches or how it changes their life, but it will make a difference. It always does. That is the only answer that truly matters. And that's my aspiration, not to be a queen of a country, but a queen in people's hearts.